Today, it seems like truth can be whatever someone decides it is. So how do we deal with this when there's so much noise and confusion around us? Buddha's advice is to go back to the root. Are there core truths that no one can argue about? Yes, there are at least two that stand firm. The first truth is something the Bible mentions. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what is this first, undeniable truth? You are living on a tiny planet, floating in the vast emptiness of space. If you're tired of hearing that, it's unfortunate, because I want you to focus on these two key truths. Once you do, observe how it changes your mind, your life, and your understanding of everything. Is it true that Earth is a small planet spinning in the middle of a dark, empty universe? Absolutely. Is that a belief, a concept, a theory, or a dream? No, it's just reality. People have even gone out into space and taken pictures of it. You've probably seen images of Earth from space, like the famous shot of Earth rising over the moon. Now let me challenge you to think about how, even with all that, this truth can feel so small and insignificant. Earth is orbiting the Sun, which is 93 million miles away. To give some perspective, Miami is only 360 miles away from many other cities, but the Sun is millions of miles from us. And Earth is so tiny compared to the Sun that you could fit 1.3 million Earths inside it. That's how small our planet is in the grand scheme of things. I know that might make you uncomfortable. Sometimes people ask me, how should I feel when I realize that I don't matter much? Well, guess what? You don't. And here's a secret. Realizing that you are insignificant is actually liberating. You can finally be free from the pressure of giving false meaning to your life, trying to make it seem bigger than it is. You're just sitting on a small piece of dirt, one that could easily fit inside a star. And by the way, there are around 300 billion stars in just our galaxy. So, not only are you and the Earth insignificant, but even the Sun is pretty meaningless in the grand picture. If the Earth disappeared tomorrow, what would change? A few planets might shift their orbits, but that's about it. The universe wouldn't really care. If you want to keep giving false meaning to things, go ahead, but see how it makes you stressed and anxious about life. It's not so hard to live on Earth once you stop trying to make everything overly important. It's actually a nice planet. And if you're not satisfied, try Mars, Venus, or Saturn. Saturn is beautiful, but remember, it's just gas. Oh my God, nothing's really happening on Saturn or anywhere else out in space. But what about Earth? Is anything happening here? Of course. There's life, plants, animals, birds, colors, sounds. So much is going on, right? We've sent out powerful telescopes like the Hubble and James Webb, and we've looked millions of light years into the universe. And what have we found? Mostly black holes swallowing everything and supernovas burning so bright that they're billions of times more powerful than our sun. Yet even those are just tiny parts of the vast universe. It's time to wake up. What am I talking about? The truth. Everything I've said is true, isn't it? But maybe it feels uncomfortable. That's because we often build ideas in our heads that don't match reality. If your mind can't accept the truth, then it's living in a made-up world. We see it all the time. People shaping reality to fit what they want to believe. Whether it's in politics, news, or everyday life, we often twist the truth to suit ourselves. But absolute truth is different. It doesn't change based on opinions or beliefs. For example, the fact that we're sitting on a planet that is spinning in the middle of space is the same for everyone, whether you're in China, Russia, or anywhere else. Scientists, regardless of their background, understand that our tiny Earth could fit inside the Sun 1.3 million times, and that there are 300 billion suns just in our galaxy alone. That's a staggering truth no one can deny. And here's another mind-blowing fact. The closest star to us, other than the Sun, is 4.3 light-years away. That's a huge distance. Imagine light, which travels fast enough to circle the Earth 7.5 times in just 1 second, going at that speed for 4.3 years. That's how far the next closest star is. And that's just one of 300 billion stars in our galaxy. What does all this mean? It shows that your mind, capable of understanding these deep truths, is extraordinary. No other creature on Earth can do that. Not apes, not tortoises. It's only us. So why not use your brilliant mind to understand these absolute truths, the ones that no one can argue with? Albert Einstein once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. You have this powerful mind that can grasp the universe, but instead, we often fill it with distractions and meaningless worries. When you truly reflect on these unchangeable truths, something incredible happens. You become free. Why? Because the problems you experience are often just thoughts in your mind. By focusing on the bigger picture, those everyday worries start to seem small and insignificant. The truth sets you free, just like the Bible says. So instead of getting lost in problems created by your mind, why not contemplate the truth? You might find that life gets a whole lot easier. The only real problem you can ever have is when your mind says, "I don't like that." But what if your mind said, "I like it"? Suddenly there's no problem. Now if your mind says, "I like it," and then turns around and says, "I don't like it," that's where problems start. Let's say I tell you I love you, but later I decide I don't love you anymore. Now I have a problem. Or maybe I think I don't love you, but someone else comes along and then I realize I do love you after all. That's a problem. All of these problems are created in the same way by the mind. Otherwise, you're just here, sitting on a planet that's spinning in space. It's a huge universe, right? So vast and endless that if you start thinking about the truth of it all, instead of getting trapped in ego-driven thoughts like me, mine, what I want and what I don't want, your mind opens up to something much bigger. But most of the time, our minds are filled with, what do I like? What don't I like? What's my opinion? What are my beliefs? It's all about me and how my views are different from yours. It's like we're living in a tiny fishbowl with those little thoughts swimming around inside. That's the voice in your head, the one that keeps you locked in your own little world. The truth is, the only problems you have are the ones you decide are problems. But when it comes to the big picture, something you didn't create, you don't get to define that. That's the absolute truth. It's solid, unshakable. We're here, 4.3 light years away from the closest star. Now, think about this for a moment. For the next 47,000 years, we could keep talking about how far away the other stars are. Take the Voyager spacecrafts, for example. They were launched in the 1960s and they've traveled farther than anything ever has. They've even gone beyond the reach of our solar system, beyond the influence of the sun. What does that mean? It means they've left the area where the sun's rays and solar winds have any effect. And guess what? The sun is just one star out of 300 billion in our galaxy. And the next closest one is 4.3 light years away. And that's just in our galaxy, the Milky Way. Let's zoom out even further. Right now, scientists estimate that there are around 2 trillion galaxies. Just think about that. The nearest major galaxy to us is Andromeda. How far is it? It's 2.5 million light years away. Now, to help you picture that, light is fast. It can circle the Earth 7.5 times in just 1 second. But to reach Andromeda, light would have to travel for 2.5 million years straight. That's the kind of scale we're talking about. You're sitting here in this immense universe. But instead of expanding your mind to think about that, you're getting stuck in tiny personal thoughts. Here's a challenge. Free your mind for a moment. Stop getting wrapped up in those little personal thoughts that keep you trapped in a small world. You're living in the temple of the universe, and it's massive beyond your imagination. Instead of being consumed by the trivial things you've filled your head with, just for a minute, dare to let go of them and see the bigger picture. To give you another mind-blowing fact, imagine trying to count the stars in our galaxy, 300 billion of them. I once had someone do the math, and if you tried to count them one by one, taking 1 second per star, it would take lifetimes. And that's just for the stars in our galaxy. Now think about the 2 trillion galaxies out there. It's beyond comprehension. The next galaxy, Andromeda, is a staggering 2.5 million light-years away. If you release a beam of light and let it travel at the speed of light, it would take millions of years to reach it. That's how big and vast the universe really is. So, in the grand scheme of things, what are those little problems your mind keeps focusing on? They pale in comparison to the enormous reality that's out there, waiting for you to contemplate. All right, now let's talk about what's really important. This is what it means to think about the truth, and when you do, it will set you free. Imagine if you thought like this all the time. It doesn't mean you're not living here on Earth, you still are. But at the same time, your mind is also focused on the bigger picture, on reality and the truth. People often talk about God. You don't talk about God? Well, I'll do it for a moment. Think about all those galaxies and stars we've talked about. That's the body of God. It's all part of one consciousness. Just like you are aware of your whole body at once, there is something, let's call it an entity, not a human entity, that is aware of everything in the universe. This entity created all of it from itself and is experiencing every single part of it, every single moment, all at once. That's God. Isn't that amazing? One day you're going to understand this. How? Because you are conscious and so is that entity. In fact, there's only one consciousness in the entire universe. That's the consciousness we're talking about. The problem is that one consciousness is caught up in looking at your individual thoughts, your body, your emotions, just like it's looking at everyone else's. It's like the sun, which has many rays but is still just one sun. So your consciousness, your awareness is focused on the little things in front of you, on what's happening in your life. But when you go deep enough, and everyone has the ability to go that deep, you stop being so focused on yourself. Right now, you're constantly watching your thoughts, your emotions, what you like and what you don't like, and you're trapped in that. But when you stop focusing on those small things, you realize that you are consciousness, and your consciousness is like a ray coming from that great, universal consciousness. This is what the great spiritual masters understood. That's what Christ meant when he said, "My Father and I are one." That's the essence of enlightenment. But don't go around saying, "I'm enlightened." No, you're not. Meher Baba, another spiritual master, explained it like this. Imagine a drop of water that is conscious, like a drop of your awareness. That drop is busy looking at itself. But when it stops looking at itself, it falls back into the ocean. Once it merges with the ocean, it becomes one with it. Could you ever find that drop again? No, it has become the ocean. This is what the word yoga means, union, a complete merging. The greatest spiritual teachers all experienced this, and they all said the same thing. What I am, you are too. There's no difference. That's the ultimate truth. Are you aware of your own thoughts? Can you notice when you're thinking? The part of you that can notice your thoughts is your consciousness. When you start to understand this, things become clearer. This idea I'm talking about is the second truth. It's real. But until you experience it for yourself, it might seem debatable. However, for those who have found harmony with this truth, there's no argument. They understand that this universal consciousness is always there, and it loves you more deeply than anyone else could. Its very nature is love. Amazing, right? Now think about it. What problems could you possibly have? They all seem pretty silly when you consider this. In reality, there are no problems. There's just existence. So, let's go back to the first truth. The universe is incredibly big, and your Earth is unbelievably small in comparison. If Earth is tiny, what does that make you? Something even smaller, barely a speck. That's the truth. Now let's talk about another undeniable truth, something that no one can argue with. It's a fact agreed upon by every scientist, every person, and everything that has ever existed. You're not going to stay here forever. You're not going to live on this planet forever. Whether you like this or not doesn't change the fact that it's true. Here you are, on this little ball spinning through space, and somehow you ended up here. How exactly you got here, or where you were before. That's your philosophy. It's something we all think about. But one thing is clear. You're only going to be here for a short while, maybe 80, 90 or 100 years. And how long has the Earth been around? About 4.5 billion years. In that vast timeline, your time here is just a tiny blink. So what are you doing with that little bit of time? The truth is, you're on this tiny planet spinning in the middle of nowhere and you're not staying for long. Yet, what do most people choose to do with their time? They worry, they stress, they get anxious, they seek approval or likes on social media. Isn't that a strange way to spend your short time on this little planet? Why would you choose that? This is what it means to wake up. What does it mean to not wake up? It means using your amazing, brilliant mind, not to explore the vastness of reality, but to focus on yourself. Instead of letting your mind help you understand the bigger picture, you narrow your attention to your own thoughts, your own likes and dislikes, and your personal worries. You become trapped in thinking about yourself all the time, and then you get stuck thinking about what has happened to you, or what you believe or what you don't believe. But guess what? Things happen to everyone, and always have. It's not just you. Everyone who has ever lived has had their ups and downs. There are 8.3 billion people alive right now, each with their own unique story, right? Everyone is constantly going through something, every single moment. But you made a really big deal about what happened to you, didn't you? The truth is, things are happening all the time, everywhere. It's just how the world is. Even here on Earth, it's always busy. But if you want to clear your mind, you can explore what I think about, out there in the universe. It's really peaceful up there. Then you can come back down, enjoy life, do good things or whatever you want. But don't come back down here, mess up your mind, and then get upset because you're stressed out. And what about your heart? People say others make their hearts beat with emotions. But are you willing to be honest here? It's really your mind controlling your heart. Pay attention. One thought, and your heart closes. Another thought, and it opens. You might think, oh, I already love him so much. He makes my heart feel so full of love. Then someone says, did you know he killed 5 people before meeting you? And suddenly it's, oh my God, I don't want to see him ever again. Your mind can change your heart like that, can't it? It does, and it shows how they work together. When your heart feels pain or fear, your mind starts asking, why am I scared? Is it because of what Sally said? Did I make a mistake? Is this my bad karma? Am I doomed forever? Relax. None of that is real. Go live your life, have fun, because you're not stuck in this fear. Now, about the relationship between your personal heart and mind, what does it mean? Earlier, I was talking about the mind in an abstract way, like the intellectual mind. But now I'm talking about the little part of your mind, the one trapped in a box, only focused on your own personal thoughts. You took your mind, which could think about anything, and narrowed it down to just this small, limited area. One of the great spiritual masters, Ramakrishna, when talking about himself, used to say, this doesn't feel well today. He didn't mean himself, but just something he was observing, like how you look at your thoughts. You are aware of them, but you keep getting wrapped up in those repetitive, anxious thoughts. They make you nervous, scared, and even mess with your heart. Your heart, which is this sensitive, beautiful thing, gets overwhelmed because your mind won't stop talking. Don't go there. You know it's dangerous. What if something bad happens? You do that to yourself, but that's not reality. It's just the story you're telling yourself. I've shared this story before, but let me tell it again. There was a young woman, she was sitting right there, on either a Monday or Thursday night after a talk during a Kwanda session. She raised her hand and said, I think I get what you're talking about. My dad was a cop in a tough part of New York City. He always told me never, ever get into a taxi alone. A woman in New York City should never do that. You have no idea what I've seen. He would constantly warn me about the dangers. And sure, He was a police officer who had probably seen some scary things in the city. But women in New York take taxis and Ubers all the time, right? It's normal. He would have said the same thing about Uber if it had existed back then. But the problem is, you can't live your life focusing on the worst things that could happen, even if they only happen 0.001% of the time. If you do, you'll end up being afraid of everything. Now let's talk about how your mind got the way it is. You grew up, your parents got divorced, and maybe you didn't get along with your stepfather or stepmother and you hated that whole situation. Let's say this all happened when you were between 5 and 10 years old. Then you moved on with life. Fast forward, now you're about 28 or 30, and you've fallen in love with someone who wants to marry you. But you've decided you're not getting married. When asked, why not get married? You respond, no, I don't want to talk about it. I just don't believe in it. Why do you think that way? Because deep down you're scared that if you get married, it could end in divorce, just like what happened to your parents. You know the statistics. 50% of marriages end in divorce. And from your childhood experience, you believe divorce is terrible for kids. That's left an impression on your heart and mind? But here's the thing. Your experience is just one example. It's only your experience, and while it was real for you, it doesn't reflect the reality for everyone. How many children had a positive experience after their parents remarried, ending up with a stepfather or stepmother who was better than the original parent? There are 8.3 billion people on this planet, and many of them have been through similar situations, but you're basing your entire view on just one small experience, your own. So now you're saying, I'm not getting married no matter how much we love each other, because we might fall out of love and we might get divorced. And I'm not having children either, because I don't want to put them through what I went through. This entire decision is based on fear from something that happened in the past, not necessarily what will happen in the future. Every preference you have was shaped by your past experiences. You didn't decide a single thing on your own, not your political views, your religion, what you like or what you dislike. Psychology says people are the sum of their learned experiences. First of all, that applies to both men and women, and second, it's not entirely true. You are not just the sum of your experiences. You are the consciousness inside, the awareness that observes your mind and heart, which are shaped by those experiences. You're watching your thoughts and feelings, which are built from your past experiences. But where did those preferences even come from? For example, if someone says, I don't like the color blue, I've never liked it. You might ask them, what color was your favorite blanket when it was taken away too soon? They answer, blue. Or someone says, I love the color blue, it's my favorite. And if you ask them the same question, they might say, my blanket was blue and I want it back. I was only 2 years old. Psychology is right when it says your mind is shaped by your experiences, but spirituality adds something important. It says that doesn't mean you are defined by those experiences. How do you even know you like or dislike something? Your mind tells you, I like this, or I don't want that. Your heart feels something and you listen to it. But where do those feelings and thoughts come from? Let me give you an example to show that you're more than just your learned experiences. Imagine someone comes up to you and says, I've got a great person for you to meet. He's an amazing guy, really special. Lots of people know him, and they all think he's wonderful. Now, because of this, you already start forming an idea that this person is someone special. You feel a bit nervous to meet him because of what you've been told. That's an experience shaping your thoughts. But if no one had told you anything about him, and you just saw him walking by, you might have thought, what a stuck-up, arrogant person. Maybe he walked in a way that reminded you of someone you didn't like back in 5th grade. Do you see what I mean? Your thoughts were shaped by the experiences you've had before. Now let's continue with the story. You're ready to meet this guy, but suddenly someone calls you and says, did she set you up with George? Are you serious? Go ask Sally what he did to her. Now, how do you feel about George? Just like that, two different conversations, two separate experiences have completely changed your view of him. So, when people say your experiences are the truth, they're not always right. You don't have the full truth. You just have what a couple of people told you. Your feelings, emotions, likes, dislikes, everything going on in your mind and heart are all shaped by your past experiences. These personal thoughts and feelings are not as important as we often think. I know, some people don't like hearing that. When I say they're meaningless, I get messages saying, "How could you say that? I'm not meaningless." But actually, yes, in the big picture, they are. You might wonder, why are my experiences meaningless? They happened to me. But consider how many experiences you didn't have in your lifetime. Every moment you're experiencing something, but there are countless other things happening around you that you're not even aware of. What's the universal set of all experiences? The whole universe, and what's your experience? Just 0.0001% of infinity. In statistical terms, we'd call that statistically insignificant. It's too tiny to matter in the grand scheme of things. It's like saying, I know who's going to win the election because I asked my friend who she's voting for. That's not enough data to predict the whole outcome. Similarly, any single experience you've had is just a tiny fraction of all possible experiences happening at the same time. It's not the full picture. You take one small experience, sure, it was an experience, but just one out of billions, and treat it like the most important thing. If you had looked to your left instead of your right, you might have had a completely different experience. If your coffee took an extra second to brew this morning, your entire day could have been slightly different. These little moments aren't as meaningful as we make them out to be, because they're only one small piece of a massive puzzle. Who's willing to face this truth? If you think about it, you'll realize you've had experience after experience, but missed countless others. And now you believe your opinions, dreams, customs, and worldview are so meaningful. No, they're not. Can I say that to you? Logically, you can see why these thoughts don't mean much. They're just the sum of the tiny fraction of experiences you've had, which are nothing compared to all the others happening around you at any given moment. So what's the lesson here? You begin to understand that what's going on in your mind doesn't hold as much weight as you thought. This realization brings humility. That's what the saying means. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Once you see this, you'll stop being so caught up in the stories running through your mind. Think about it. Something happened 5 days ago, at a specific point in time and space, but there were millions of other things happening at the same time in the universe. And you? You experienced just one small thing. That moment may not have felt good, but now it's running your life because you didn't let it be just a passing moment. Instead, you turned it into the most important thing in your life, and that's how it starts controlling everything you do from then on. But the truth is, it was just one experience out of billions you could have had. That's all it was. You were once married to a guy named Ben, and in the beginning you loved him deeply. But over time things changed, and by the end that love faded away. The divorce was messy and painful, as many divorces are. Fast forward 5 years, you're at a party in Italy, and someone calls out, "Ben! Ben!" in an Italian accent. In that moment, your heart tightens up. You can't stand hearing the name Ben anymore because of all the pain associated with it. You've had more than enough of Ben to last a lifetime. Do you see what's happening here? You took one moment of your life, out of all the countless moments you've experienced, and you locked it inside yourself because it hurt so much. And now, that memory is controlling you. That's why your mind keeps talking the way it does, constantly replaying those painful experiences. It's because you've stored that emotional garbage inside, and now it's running the show. This is why that voice in your head never seems to stop. It's trying to manage all the unresolved feelings you couldn't handle at the time. Think about it. You didn't store every little thing you've seen. like the white lines on the road when you were driving or the random people you passed in New York City. You didn't hold on to those things. Instead, you stored the moments that hurt you or left a deep impression. You've built your inner world, your psyche, out of all the things that bothered you in the past. Now look at the things you like or dislike. If you give me a list, I'll tell you that it's all based on what you've stored inside yourself from your past experiences. Why don't you like certain things? It's because something from your past made you uncomfortable, and now that feeling controls your reactions. And what about the things you do like? Your dreams? Your passions? If you dig deep, you'll see they're also rooted in your past. Maybe it was a movie you saw, a book you read, or a happy moment you once had, and now it shapes what you think you want from life. All this stored stuff is loud and powerful because it's filled with your likes and dislikes. It pulls your consciousness toward it, so you end up spending your life chasing after things you want and running away from things you fear. You tell yourself, I want this to happen, and I don't want that to happen. But what's really going on is that you're lost in the noise of your mind. This is what people mean when they talk about the fall from the garden. You've fallen away from a higher state of being, what they call divine consciousness, which is supposed to be pure joy and love. God isn't sending anyone to hell. God is pure love and ecstasy. This whole world is like a beautiful piece of art that God created. But you've chosen to fall from that blissful state into the chaos of your own mind. The truth is, you're in there, in your own mind, and you're the only one in control. You can decide how things affect you. If someone says something insulting, you can choose to respond with love instead of letting it hurt you. That's what being truly free is all about. You get to decide how you experience life from the inside. You have the power to rise above the noise and chaos you've created and live in peace, no matter what's happening around you. That's the path of a saint. There was a woman I knew, Yaki, who was very important to me. She brought us the Dur statue back in the mid to late 1970s. Yaki was very serious and she never really talked about personal things. She was a deep and wise woman, but we had a close connection. There was one time I'll never forget, though, and it was the only time she ever said something personal to me. She's passed away now, but this memory stays with me. She leaned over and said, "Mickey?" I replied, "Yes, Mother." And she said, "Don't you just love when people yell at you? There's so much energy in it, don't you think?" She took something most of us see as negative, yelling, and turned it into something full of energy, something exciting. She said, "Bring it on, I want more." She had this incredible ability to transform what could be a stressful situation into something she embraced. What she was really teaching me is that you can control your inner world. No one else is in there except you. We often say, "These are my thoughts, these are my feelings," and we feel proud of that. When someone says, "You hurt my feelings," it shows that we hold on to them tightly. But here's the truth. You can shape your feelings into something beautiful. You can learn to enjoy every moment of life, and once you're at peace with yourself, you can start truly helping others. However, if you're not okay inside, you might think you're helping others, but in reality, you're just trying to make the world fit your own needs so you can feel better. When you're upset or bothered by something, you tend to push back against it. You start trying to change the world around you to make yourself feel okay. You say, "My way is right." But is it really? Someone else might say, "Her way is right." But that's not true either. There was a song from the 60s that asked, "How can everyone be right when everyone's wrong?" That's exactly the point. Everyone thinks they're right because they're looking at life through their own learned experiences. You might think, "My political views are like this because I had this experience when I was younger." But someone else had a different experience, and that's why they think differently. Everyone's opinions and beliefs are shaped by what they've been through. But those beliefs aren't the ultimate truth. The real truth is much simpler. We're all just living on a planet, spinning in space, here for a short while, and then we're gone. That's the truth. The stories we create in our heads based on our personal experiences are only relative truths. Some people might wonder, if I think like this, if I open myself up to this truth, how can I live in this world? They might say, I don't like this because my sister died, and it hurt me so much. Now I do everything I can to feel better, which is why I write like this. That's the truth, but instead of admitting that, we say, this is the truth, I feel it in my heart. Of course, you feel that way because it's based on your own experiences. Does this sound confusing? Or do you see what I'm getting at? This is a spiritual discussion. It's not about what you believe, what you wish for, or what you're trying to attract into your life. What are all these ideas about attracting things to yourself? Yes, you can attract things, but how do you decide what you want to attract? It's usually based on your past experiences. And why do you want those things? Because you believe they'll make you feel okay. But in the end, it's about learning to be okay without needing anything else to make you feel that way. Why are you not okay right now? The truth is, you're already pure love, pure beauty, pure spirit, and pure joy. Deep down, that's who you are, every single one of us. But the problem is, you're focused on things that aren't that pure essence, and those things make you uncomfortable. So what do? We go out into the world and try to change everything to make ourselves feel better, to make life more comfortable. But we don't want to admit that this approach is pointless, even foolish. That's why people are constantly fighting with each other, why there are wars, and why there's so much conflict in the world, right? When you start to see the truth, it can feel like a heavy realization. It's deep stuff. You have to learn to step back from yourself to see the truth more clearly. If you're always looking at your own experiences and holding on to them, you won't see things for what they really are. You need to understand that most of what you believe comes from your past experiences. It's a collection of what you've gone through, but that doesn't mean you're always right. How can you be sure your way of thinking is the only right way? Even great spiritual teachers like Yogananda would say, if I had lived someone else's life, I would probably think the way they do. By God's grace, I'm different. In other words, don't judge others. As Christ taught, judge not, so you won't be judged. Let the one without sin cast the first stone. This is what true spirituality is about. You wake up to the fact that life isn't about making everything around you match your expectations. When you try to do that, you're just stuck in your own past experiences. You're saying, the only way I'll feel okay is if everything and everyone in the world lines up exactly the way I need it to. You want everything, people, situations, even the news you read, to make you feel better, to make you comfortable. And when things don't go that way, you get angry, frustrated, or full of road rage. Why is this person driving so slow? This is so annoying. It's all just your stored frustrations coming out. You see, that's where our anger and insecurity come from. It's all the emotional junk we've stored inside over the years. It needs to come out somehow, and that's why we lash out or feel insecure. But here's the deeper truth. The part of you that's watching all of this unfold, the part that's aware of your thoughts and feelings, is the highest, most powerful thing that's ever existed on earth. That awareness, that consciousness, is what God is. Consciousness is the most sacred thing there is. It's even at the heart of what quantum physics is discovering. It's the most spiritual and beautiful thing science has found, besides what the enlightened masters have always known. Quantum physics is all about the search for truth, and it has led to some surprising discoveries. At first, we might look at something like a piece of wood and think it's solid, but that's not really true. When you look closer, you find that it's made of molecules. But then, if you look even closer with a more powerful microscope, you see that molecules are actually made of atoms. Dig deeper still, and you'll find that atoms are made of smaller parts: electrons, neutrons, and protons. But wait, there's more. Even those particles are not the smallest building blocks. They are made of even tinier particles called quarks, bosons, and leptons, which make up protons and neutrons. For example, 2 up quarks and 1 down quark make a proton, while 2 down quarks and 1 up quark make a neutron. So everything we see, touch, and are made of is built from these tiny particles. But here's the catch. When you dig even deeper, you find that these particles are not solid things either. They are not particles in the way we usually think of them. Instead, they are waves in a field, like ripples in water. These wave-like disturbances give us the appearance of particles, but in reality, there are no particles at all, just fields that make waves. Now, what are these fields made of? This is the point where even the smartest quantum physicists say, we don't know. They know that the fields are everywhere, that they explain how the universe behaves, and that they match what we observe in the world. But what the fields themselves are made of? No idea. This is where ancient spiritual wisdom comes in. Thousands of years ago, without microscopes or modern science, great spiritual masters meditated deeply and found their own answers. They said that at the deepest level, everything is made of consciousness. By going inward, they discovered that the essence of the universe is not just physical, but spiritual. A great example of this is Yogananda's experience, as described in Autobiography of a Yogi. In a moment of cosmic consciousness, he felt his entire being expand to the size of the universe. He described feeling that the galaxies were part of his own body, and that his consciousness was expanding at the speed of light in all directions. He became one with the universe. It's like when you dream at night. In your dreams, you create entire worlds, cities, people, and experiences that feel real. Sometimes your dreams are so vivid that when you wake up, you still believe for a moment that it actually happened. This shows us that the mind has the power to create realities, just like how consciousness is the ultimate foundation of everything in the universe. What are those things made of? They're obviously there. Your consciousness experiences them. They're made of consciousness. You create them from your own consciousness. The universe itself is made from a universal field of consciousness that expresses itself. This is what the great masters taught long ago. They believed this field of consciousness exists everywhere and expresses itself because it wants to know itself. Now, how do you take an empty field of consciousness and turn it into something physical, like the world we see? This is where quantum physics comes in. Quantum physicists have discovered that, at the deepest level, there's nothing but tiny vibrations in a field. In yoga, these vibrations are called vrittis. These small movements or waves can create the entire universe. Scientists have figured out that from these tiny vibrations or vibes, the universe is created. Amazing, right? The point of this discussion is to talk about the truth. And here's the truth. No matter where they come from, scientists, whether Chinese, American, or from anywhere else, are all working with the same model. That's why they call it the standard model of physics. It's all based on the same reality, and they're getting closer to understanding it. And what is that reality? You, as consciousness, are observing everything that happens in your life. You are the one creating and experiencing it. Now you might say, but I didn't create this. My mum said hurtful things to me when I was younger. Yes, maybe she did. But did you have to hold on to those hurtful words for the rest of your life? Why would you keep the most painful things inside of you, letting them affect your whole life? You might say, I don't know, it just happened. Yes, I understand it just happened, but why not let go of it? Imagine you're 87 years old, and your mother has been gone for 40 years, but the thought of her still upsets you. Is it her fault that you're still holding on to that pain, or is it yours? She may have done something hurtful 43 years ago, but it's you who allowed it to affect your life for so long. It could have been like the white lines you pass while driving on a road. Just something you notice and then move past. But no, you stopped and held on to it. The truth is, when you hold on to painful experiences, you store them inside yourself. And one day, when you stop pushing them away, they'll rise back up, and you won't like how it feels. But here's the good news. You have the power to let them go. You can decide to stop holding on to that pain, even if it's been decades. If you want to live a life that's free, full of love, joy, and peace, you can't keep holding on to those old hurts. If you want to fully experience the beauty of life, like feeling real love or enjoying a sunset, you need to let go of the painful things you've stored inside. Only then can you open up to the greatness within you. So when those old feelings come back up, it's going to feel uncomfortable, just like it did when you first experienced it. That's because when you originally pushed it down, you stored that same feeling inside you. But now, you need to be ready, willing, and able to face it. You have to say, "I'm sorry I buried you for so long. I'm sorry you've been stuck in my subconscious for 40 years. I don't want you down there anymore. I'm truly sorry. I'll help you come up and release. I know it won't feel good, but I want to be free. And to be free, I have to be willing to let you come up. And I am willing." That's why we use practices like mantras, yoga, and breathing exercises. These techniques help us stay open and manage those feelings as they rise to the surface. Even if it's painful or difficult, these tools help us release it. Some people might think, "You don't understand what I went through," but I do understand, and I care about you so much that I don't want you living with that pain any longer. Yes, the bad thing happened, but that's in the past. You don't need to keep reliving it. The word happened is past tense, so why are you dragging it into the present? It doesn't have to stay inside you anymore. The hard part is being willing to let it go, and I know that's not easy. I'm sure there are things inside of you right now that make you uncomfortable even hearing this conversation. But the truth is, you can't be truly free as long as you're holding on to that stuff. It will always hold you down, like an anchor tying your boat to the bottom of the ocean. No matter how much you try to rise above it, whether through substances, retreats, or spiritual practices, if that old pain is still inside, it will drag you back down. Until you let go of it, you won't be able to move forward. So how do you stop holding on to it? The answer is simple. Just let it go when it comes up. The great teachers all say the same thing. When those old feelings rise, don't push them back down. Let them surface and then release them. You are the one keeping them down by not wanting to think or feel them. But the truth is, you do want them to come up, because once they do and you let them go, you'll be freer than you were before. When you start letting go of that old pain, you'll notice a change. You'll realize, I'm not as messed up as I thought. My thoughts aren't as crazy as they used to be. I'm not as moody, and I can handle things that used to overwhelm me. That's because you're clearing out the emotional garbage you've been carrying. And as you continue to let go, something amazing happens. You start feeling a new kind of energy rising inside of you. Normally, that stored pain pulls you down, making you fight, control, and manipulate your way through life. But when you release enough of it, you start feeling light, like an energy flowing through you. It's the same energy you felt before when you were deeply in love or really excited about something, but it didn't last back then. Now this energy will rise naturally without any outside reason. It just comes up on its own, and it feels amazing. What are we talking about here? Love. Why does love come into this? Because deep down, that's what's inside of you. The only reason you don't always feel it is because you've blocked it off. And the only time you do feel it is when someone says something nice to you, and that moment cracks open that blockage. You feel good for a while, until they say something not so nice, or they give that same attention to someone else. It's like love is always there, but there are clouds covering it up. Now, what if you decide to let go of those clouds? What happens then? Love starts coming through. And not just love, but joy, excitement, and energy too. You begin to feel this powerful force inside you all day, every day. It gets stronger and you realize, wow, this is amazing. I feel excited about everything. You start to love life itself. You love everything around you because you're filled with joy and energy. And the best part? Every single one of us can experience that. Then, something interesting happens. When things outside of you don't go perfectly, they don't shock you as much. You start noticing that it's not worth trading this beautiful experience of joy for a moment of discomfort. Imagine someone offering you $1 million in exchange for just $1. You'd never make that trade, right? Yet that's exactly what we do when we give up our inner peace because of something someone else said or did. They had a bad day, they said something to upset you, and suddenly you're ready to throw away your joy. Why? Eventually, you start to wise up and think, that was silly. Why not just handle whatever they said or did? They had a bad day, so what? Let it go and keep my joy. And guess what? You start catching on. You begin to see a whole new way of living, how to stay high on life, how to stay joyful no matter what happens, and how never to come back down. You reach a point where you tell yourself, nothing can bring me down anymore. I'm just a person living on a little planet, spinning around in space. Think about it. What did you do today? Took a spin on Earth's axis. What did you do this year? I went around the sun. And yet people get so upset over little things. I had a bad day because I spilled ketchup on my shirt. Meanwhile, the Earth is still spinning, and you just completed another trip around the sun. Isn't that amazing? And once you start feeling this energy, you realize something. You don't want to give it up. It's the most beautiful feeling. Then something incredible happens. The world around you starts to feel more harmonious, more in sync. Why? Because you stop judging everything as good or bad. You begin to understand that life, with all its ups and downs, is part of your growth. You realize that birth, death, joy, and sadness, they're all essential parts of life. Earth is a place for souls to evolve, and you won't grow if you always get what you want. The challenges are what help you move forward. If you got everything you ever wanted since you were a little kid, you'd still act like that little kid. Think about it. If all your desires were met since you were 3, you'd never grow past that point. So getting everything you want is actually overrated. It doesn't help you grow or mature. What really matters is learning to let go of why you like or dislike things. That's when you start to get deep. We all carry around these impressions, these likes, dislikes, and opinions. But once you begin letting go of them, something amazing happens. You get excited about everything. You wake up every morning feeling inspired, thinking, I don't know what's going to happen today, but I'm excited to find out. The more you let go of those attachments, the higher you rise emotionally and spiritually. You start feeling lighter, freer, and more energized. Letting go isn't just something you do once, it's a process. The more you release, the better you feel, and eventually you reach a point where nothing can touch you. No situation or person can bring you down anymore because you've freed yourself from all those emotional anchors holding you back. At that stage, you don't need any external crutches, no rugs to pull out from under you, no struggle to fight against. You just keep rising by letting go. We've talked about some powerful truths here, truths you can use to set yourself free from your own limitations. There are plenty of great techniques out there, yoga, meditation, breathing exercises. They're all helpful, but only if you use them to let go of the baggage you carry inside. When something comes up, breathe, meditate, or do whatever helps you release it. But don't live your life trying to hold on to that stuff. If you do, you'll never grow or change. Now, when it comes to your past, your relationship with it should be one of gratitude, not regret. You should be able to look back and say, thank you, I love you, because you made me who I am today. Every tough experience, every challenge, every bit of pain, they were like chisels, sandpaper, and even bombs, shaping you into the spiritual being you are now. You should reach a point where you wouldn't change a single thing about your past, no matter how hard it was. That's true appreciation for what life can do for you. In the end, it's all about letting go, growing, and appreciating the journey. That's where the real freedom lies. Thank you for listening.